It began with 5 crumpled dollars, a girl, a broken dog, and a decision that everyone around her called a mistake. In a forgotten corner of a small town, 7-year-old Lily held tight to a dream most would have dismissed. She wasn't looking for something flashy. She wasn't even sure what she was hoping to find, but deep inside she believed one thing with her whole heart. One day, her real best friend would come, and when she found him, she would know. That day came sooner than anyone expected. It was during a quiet visit with her grandfather to a neighbor's old property, more scrapyard than home. The place smelled of rust and dust. A forgotten kind of stillness hung in the air. But something stirred. Lily caught a glimpse of movement near a crumbling barn. There, half hidden in straw and mud, lay a German shepherd. Thin, limping, dull eyes, scarred body. He was tied to a post with a frayed rope as if someone had long ago decided he wasn't worth much anymore. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He simply watched. Lily froze. She had seen dogs before, but never one that looked like this. Not just broken on the outside, but hollow on the inside too. She turned to the man who owned the property. "What about him?" she asked quietly. He shrugged. "He's no good. Anymore. Hurt his leg. You want him? $5. $5. Lily reached into her jacket pocket. It was all the money she had, earned from gathering eggs, sweeping porches, doing small things with big care. She pulled out 5 crumpled dollar bills with trembling hands and offered them forward. The man barely looked. He took the cash and turned away. "He's your problem now." But Lily didn't see a problem. She saw a promise. Her grandfather hesitated. "Sweetheart, are you sure?" he asked. She nodded. "He needs someone, and I think he picked me." That's how it started. A girl and a dog no one else wanted. They untied him slowly, gently. He didn't resist. He just stood up, weak, yes, but willing, and followed her as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. Back at their family's little farm, Lily made him a bed in the barn. Blankets, fresh water, quiet. She knelt beside him, her small hands brushing gently through his matted fur. "You're safe now, Bruno," she whispered. The name came from somewhere deep inside her, and for the first time in what must have been years, the dog sighed, not just a breath, but something softer, like a whisper of relief. In that moment, neither of them knew what would come next. They didn't know about the battles Bruno had once fought, or the secret buried beneath his scars. They didn't know how this story would ripple out, touching hearts far beyond their small town. All they knew was this: something broken had found. Something gentle, and that was enough for now. Bruno didn't make a sound that first night. He lay curled in the corner of the barn, barely moving, his breathing shallow, his eyes tracking every flicker of shadow as if danger might come at any moment. Outside, the wind stirred the trees, but inside there was only stillness. Lily stayed close. She brought her favorite blanket from her bed, blue with faded stars, and laid it gently beneath him. She placed a bowl of water nearby, a few scraps of leftover chicken on a plate, and her most prized possession, a stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. She left it near his front paw. "I know it's silly," she whispered, "but he makes me feel better when I'm scared." Bruno didn't move. Lily's grandfather watched from the doorway, his face unreadable. He had seen many animals in his time, some wild, some abandoned, but this dog was something different. Not just injured, haunted. "He might not make it through the week," he said quietly to Lily's grandmother later that night. "Whatever happened to him, it's left more than just a limp." But Lily didn't see what the grown-ups saw. She came back the next morning, early, carrying toast with jam and a little book of bedtime stories. "Good morning, buddy," she chirped, kneeling beside him again. Bruno didn't eat the toast, but his eyes followed her. She opened the book and began to read aloud, stumbling over the long words but smiling through them anyway. Her voice was soft and sincere, the kind of sound that could wrap around a broken heart without trying too hard. And she did it again the next morning and the next. Each night, she'd return to the barn, tuck him in with the blanket, stroke the space between his ears and whisper, "You're safe, Bruno, you're home now." Still, Bruno didn't bark, didn't whine, didn't wag, but he also didn't flinch anymore. He no longer pulled away when Lily touched him. His body still ached, especially his back leg, but the tension had started to melt. Like ice slowly softening in the sun, his guard began to drop. On the fifth day, something shifted. Lily was sweeping out the barn with a bundle of hay under one arm, humming softly to herself. It was a tune her grandmother used to sing, something about fireflies and moonlight. She wasn't thinking much, just moving through the simple rhythm of her morning. Behind her, Bruno stirred. He didn't bark or whimper, just a flicker, a moment. His tail, still thin, still ragged, moved. Just once, a single uncertain wag. Lily froze, mid-hum. She turned, slowly, heart thudding. Did you just wag your tail?" she whispered, almost afraid to break the spell. Bruno didn't move. Again, his head lowered, eyes heavy. But the silence said more than words ever could. She ran to the house. "Grandpa," she shouted breathlessly. "He wagged his tail. Just a little, just once." Her grandfather smiled, a slow curl of something hopeful. "That's something," he said. "That's more than nothing." Over the next few days, more of Bruno began to emerge. Not like a flood, but like raindrops. One night, Lily dropped half her peanut butter sandwich near him. He sniffed it, then nudged it back toward her with his nose. She giggled and tore it in half, offering it again. He accepted this time. Another day, when Lily placed the stuffed rabbit closer to his paw, he gently rested his chin on it. And in the early hours of a Sunday morning, when a loud truck rumbled down the nearby road, Bruno didn't bolt. He stayed. Still, eyes alert, yes, but calm. It wasn't healing in the way most people understood it. It wasn't just about wounds closing or bones knitting. It was about something deeper. It was about trust returning, one heartbeat at a time. Lily never asked him to hurry, never pushed. She simply showed up every day with her whole heart in her hands, and that was enough. One evening, her grandfather sat beside her in the barn. The sun was dipping low, casting golden slants of light across the wooden walls. Bruno was lying nearby, his breathing slow, his body more relaxed than they had ever seen. "You've got away with him," the old man said. Lily looked up. I think he understands I'm not going anywhere." The grandfather nodded. "Most folks would have given up by now, left him behind." "I couldn't," Lily said. "He needs someone." Then, after a pause, "And maybe I needed someone too." They sat in silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. Bruno shifted slightly, his head resting on Lily's lap. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't sudden, but it was something. Lily didn't move. She just placed one hand gently on his fur and closed her eyes. She didn't need to say it out loud. Bruno was starting to come back to life. And whatever had happened to him before, whatever pain he carried deep in his bones, some part of him had decided it was safe to begin again. In the soft light of the barn, wrapped in the hum of evening crickets and the warmth of a little girl's belief, something forgotten had started to heal. And it was just the beginning. The changes in Bruno came slowly, like spring after a hard winter. One small shift, then another. But it was the strange behaviors, those subtle, inexplicable actions, that made Lily and her grandfather start to wonder if there was more to this dog than met the eye. It began one evening as the family sat in their cozy living room. The TV hummed in the background, mostly ignored, flickering with the usual local news and reruns. Lily was on the rug, coloring, while Bruno lay beside her, his head on his paws. He had started to come indoors now, only for short visits, and only when Lily was there. Then came the sound, It was just a clip from a military documentary. Marching boots, sharp commands, the hollow boom of training drums. The instant the sound filled the room, Bruno reacted. He shot up, not in fear, but in purpose. His body stiffened, head lifted, ears trained toward the screen. His tail went still. Eyes focused, not wild, but alert. He stood like a soldier hearing roll call. Lily noticed first. "Grandpa," she whispered. "Look." Her grandfather turned, brows furrowed. "Huh." Bruno stood motionless for several long seconds, then slowly sat back down, gaze still locked on the screen. The moment passed, but it stayed with them. The next morning, Lily was carrying a heavy metal bucket filled with chicken feed across the yard when she tripped. The bucket crashed to the ground with a sharp clatter. Bruno, who had been napping under the tree, sprang to life. In a blur, he positioned himself between Lily and the noise, his body low and steady, gaze scanning the surroundings. As if expecting a threat, it wasn't panic, it was precision. Once he realized there was no danger, he relaxed, trotted over, and licked Lily's hand. "Why did he do that?" she asked, breathless. "I'm not sure," her grandfather murmured. But that wasn't normal dog behavior. Later, that afternoon, while playing in the grass, Lily pointed a finger like a toy gun and shouted playfully, "Bang!" Bruno dropped, not just laid down, but dropped flat, instantly, stiff and still, playing dead. Lily froze. "I didn't teach him that," she whispered. Neither did anyone else. Her grandfather had been watching from the porch. He stood slowly, arms crossed. "That dog," he said softly, "has been trained. Not just the usual sit and stay. Serious. Training. The kind you don't just forget." Lily looked at Bruno, who had risen calmly to his feet and was now sitting by her side, as if nothing unusual had happened. It was the kind of realization that makes the world suddenly bigger. Who had Bruno been before he became hers? That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed thinking about the way Bruno responded to marching sounds, the way he protected her from a simple noise, the way he seemed to know commands he had never been taught. She got up quietly and tiptoed out to the barn. Bruno lifted his head when she entered, tail thumping once. Lily knelt beside him. "Bruno," she whispered, "where did you come from?" He didn't answer, of course. But he nudged her hand with his nose and rested his head in her lap. She stroked his fur in silence, her fingers moving gently over the scars on his neck. Old wounds, faded but deep. Who had hurt him? Why had they let him go? Why was a dog like this a dog who knew how to protect, how to obey, how to survive, left tied to a post like trash? The questions kept her up that night, but they also gave her a sense of something bigger than she'd felt before. Bruno wasn't just a dog who needed saving. He was a dog with a past, and the more she watched him, the more she realized he wasn't remembering how to be a pet. He was remembering who he used to be. In the days that followed, her grandparents started noticing things too. Bruno would patrol the perimeter of the barn before settling in at night. He sat facing the door, always alert to who came and went. He responded to subtle tones in Lily's voice, standing, staying, even retreating with a calmness that felt rehearsed. One afternoon, a delivery truck pulled into the long gravel driveway, tires crunching. Bruno stepped forward, not barking, but watching. As the driver opened the door, Bruno stood tall and still, as if evaluating. The driver froze, then smiled nervously. "Good boy," he muttered. Bruno didn't move until Lily waved from the porch. Then, and only then, did he ease up and lay down. "He's not just guarding her," her grandfather said that evening. "He's assessing threats. That's instinct. Trained instinct. But trained for what?" Lily found herself wondering if Bruno had belonged to someone once, someone who hadn't come back, someone who had taken him through fields and cities, taught him how to listen, how to wait, how to protect. It was both beautiful and heartbreaking. That night, Lily drew a picture in her notebook. Bruno standing tall in front of her, a shadowy figure behind them both, a soldier maybe, or someone else. She didn't know, But what she did know was this: Bruno had been more than lost, he had been left behind. And now, for the first time, he was beginning to remember not just how to survive, but how to belong. She closed the notebook, pressed her forehead to Bruno's, and whispered, "Whatever you were before, you're safe now, and you're mine." Bruno's eyes closed, his breath slowed, and somewhere deep in the quiet barn the past stirred, but didn't scare him. Not anymore. Summer was beginning to soften into fall. The air turned crisper, and the edges of the leaves curled with the promise of color. On the little farm where Lily lived, mornings began with mist and ended in golden light. Bruno had grown stronger. His limp remained but was less pronounced now, more of a reminder than a limitation. His eyes were brighter, his tail wagged more often. But most of all, he stayed close, always within a few steps of Lily. Where she went, he followed. It was on. One of those afternoons, quiet and unremarkable, that everything changed. Lily had been playing in the field behind the barn. The grass had grown tall, waist-high in places, and wildflowers dotted the landscape in soft, chaotic bursts. She was chasing a butterfly, laughing as it danced just out of reach. Bruno trailed behind her, his pace patient, watchful. He didn't chase the butterfly. He didn't bark. He just kept her in sight. Lily wandered farther than usual, near the edge of the woods that bordered the property. Her grandfather had warned her before, "Don't go too deep. Animals out there aren't always friendly." But Lily wasn't thinking about that. She saw the butterfly land on a patch of thistle and tiptoed closer. That's when the rustling started. Not wind, not birds. Something heavier, something fast. The bushes to her left exploded with motion. In a flash of brown and fury, a wild boar burst from the undergrowth. Its eyes wide, tusks glinting, it charged, snorting, snarling, straight toward her. Lily froze. Her legs refused to move, her breath caught. All she could do was stare at the thing barreling toward her. Her heart slammed against her ribs. But Bruno didn't freeze. He moved like a bullet. In one fluid motion, he placed himself between Lily and the charging boar. He barked, not a normal bark, but a deep, sharp command that cracked through the air. Like thunder. The boar paused for half a second, startled, but it didn't stop. Bruno launched forward, growling with a ferocity Lily had never heard. He darted left, then right, hurting the beast, drawing its attention away from her. The boar lunged. Bruno dodged. His movements weren't wild or panicked. They were calculated, precise. He led the boar in a wide arc, always staying just out of reach, always moving with strategy. And then finally, the beast gave up. With a frustrated grunt, it turned and retreated back into the trees. Lily collapsed to her knees, shaking, breath coming in short gasps. Bruno returned to her side. Calm again, his tongue lolling as if he hadn't just faced down something twice his size. He nudged her gently, then licked her cheek. You saved me," she whispered. Her hands found his fur and gripped tightly. "You didn't even hesitate." Back at the house, her grandfather had seen none of it. But when Lily came running across the field, Bruno by her side, her face pale and tear-streaked, he knew something had happened. She told him everything, every detail. The boar. The way Bruno stepped in. The chase. The protection. Her grandfather listened in silence, his eyes drifting toward the woods. When she was done, he said only this: "We need to get him checked again. Properly. There's more to him than we thought." Next morning, they loaded Bruno into the truck. It wasn't easy. Bruno didn't like small spaces, and the ride made him uneasy. But Lily stayed close, whispering reassurances, stroking his back the whole way. They drove into town to a small clinic tucked between a feed store and a bakery. The sign read, "Dr. Simmons, DVM." Dr. Simmons was a kind man, older, with a beard and gentle hands. He welcomed them inside and knelt to greet Bruno without hesitation. "Well," he said, rubbing behind the dog's ears, "let's see what you've got hiding in there, buddy." He examined Bruno thoroughly, checking his legs, his teeth, his ears. but when he reached the dog's neck and shoulders, he paused. "There's something here," he muttered. He pressed gently, fingers moving along Bruno's fur. Then he stopped. "What is it?" Lily asked, her voice small. Dr. Simmons stood and opened a drawer, pulling out a small handheld device. "It feels like an embedded chip," he said. "If it's what I think it is, well, let's see." He passed the device over. Bruno's shoulder. A beep, then a pause, and then something appeared on the screen. Dr. Simmons's eyebrows shot up. He stared for a moment, then looked at Lily and her grandfather. "This dog," he said slowly, "he's not just any stray." He turned the screen toward them. "This is Bravo 9, military K9 unit, declared MIA 2 years ago, believed dead during a transport explosion overseas." Lily's mouth dropped open. Her hands found Bruno's fur again. "You were a soldier," she whispered. Bruno didn't answer, of course. But he leaned into her hand. "You were a hero," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "Before I ever met you." She hugged him tightly, burying her face into his shoulder. He licked her cheek once, soft and steady. And in that moment, she realized something that shook her to her core. She hadn't just found a friend in that old barn. She had found a warrior, a survivor, a protector. Bruno wasn't lost, he had been waiting, and now he was finally home. News travels fast in a small town, and when it involves a war hero, a little girl, and a story that feels more like a miracle than a coincidence, it travels even faster. Dr. Simmons couldn't keep the discovery to himself. After Lily and her grandfather left the clinic, he sat for a long time at his desk, still staring at the military registration number on his screen. Bravo 9, missing, presumed dead. Found alive by a child who spent her last $5 on hope. He picked up the phone. The man he called wasn't just a reporter. He was a veteran himself. Greg Mathers had served overseas before returning to his hometown to write for the local paper. When he heard the words, "military dog," found by a 10-year-old girl, he drove straight to the farm. Greg sat with Lily and her grandfather on the front porch as Bruno lay peacefully at Lily's feet. She told him everything. From the rusty barn to the trembling handshake, the stories, the stuffed rabbit, the tail wag, the rescue in the woods. Greg listened, notebook in hand, but his eyes never left Bruno. "I've seen a lot," he said, voice low, "but this is something else." 3 days later, the headline stretched across the front page of the Pineville Gazette, "Forgotten K9 Hero Found by 10-year-old Girl." The article painted a vivid picture, the bond between a wounded soldier and a child who refused to give up. It included quotes from Dr. Simmons, details from Bruno's original military file, and Lily's own words. "I didn't know who he was, I just knew he needed someone, and maybe I did too." The response was immediate. Within hours, people began arriving at the farm. Some brought dog treats, others brought cards. Strangers left bones wrapped in ribbons on the porch. Kids drew pictures of Bruno in crayon. A bakery sent a cake with a paw print in icing. The town, once quiet and reserved, turned into something else entirely. Something open, kind, united. The first veteran arrived that afternoon. He was a retired Marine, lean and weathered, who drove across 2 counties just to shake Lily's hand and kneel beside Bruno. "He saved more than lives on the battlefield," the man said, eyes misting. "He reminded us what loyalty looks like." Lily didn't know what to say, so she just smiled and sat beside Bruno, one hand on his back. More people came each day, old men with medals on their jackets, families with children who had never seen a military dog before. Someone brought an American flag folded neatly in a glass box. Someone else brought a frame for the newspaper article. Bruno handled it all with grace. He sat quietly, tail thumping now and then, offering gentle licks to the smallest hands, leaning into each touch without fear. He wasn't just healing. He was home. One afternoon, the mayor stopped by. She stood before the small crowd that had gathered in front of the barn and cleared her throat. "Today," she said, "we honor a soldier who was nearly forgotten, and a little girl who refused to let him stay that way." She turned to Lily. "Your heart saw what the rest of us missed. And now this town is better for it." The crowd clapped softly. Lily stepped forward, cheeks flushed pink. Bruno rose and stood beside her. "I didn't know who he was when I gave that $5, she began. Her voice trembled slightly. "I just knew he was hurt, and that I wanted to help." She paused, her eyes scanning the faces around her. "I guess we all need someone, right? And sometimes that someone looks a little different than we expect." She looked down at Bruno, who gazed back at her with calm, steady eyes. "They say I rescued him," she continued, voice quieter now. "But I think he rescued me first." The crowd went silent. A few people wiped their eyes. Bruno, as if sensing the moment, stepped forward and gently pressed his head against her side. She reached down and wrapped her arms around his neck. "You're my best friend," she whispered. And in that moment there wasn't a single dry eye in the crowd. The farm, once a quiet corner of Pineville, became a place of pilgrimage. Not just for those who loved animals, but for anyone who had ever lost something and dared to believe it might come back. Bruno's scars remained, but they no longer told a story of pain. They told a story of survival, of love rediscovered, of service that never truly ends. People asked if Lily would return Bruno to the military. Some wondered if he'd be better off with veterans who had served beside dogs like him. But Lily's grandfather answered plainly, "He's home now. This is his final post." Bruno wasn't interested in fanfare. He didn't care for speeches or salutes. But every morning he rose to walk the perimeter of the farm. Every evening he settled beside Lily as she read to him from her growing stack of books. And every night, she whispered the same words as she tucked the blanket around him. "You're safe now. And I love you." And Bruno, without fail, let out that same soft sigh, as if to say, "I know." Bruno's story wasn't supposed to end like this. A military K-9, trained for combat, left behind in the chaos of war, presumed dead, forgotten by the world that once counted on him. But somehow fate had other plans, and they began, improbably, with $5 wrinkled and the heart of a little girl who believed that broken things still had value. On that small farm in Pineville, the days took on a new rhythm. Bruno, once a ghost of a dog, now patrolled the property with quiet confidence. He chased away the crows from the chicken coop. He greeted visitors with calm eyes and a protective stance. And every night, he lay at the foot of Lily's bed, his breathing steady, his presence grounding. Lily, too, was different. She stood a little taller now, spoke a little softer, listened more closely, not just to people but to silence, to stillness, to the things that live between words. Bruno had taught her that. Her grandfather noticed. Her teachers noticed. Even the neighbors, who once stayed at a polite distance, now waved first when they passed the gate. The town, it seemed, had adopted Bruno just as he had adopted Lily. And yet, the story didn't feel finished. There were still questions left unanswered. Files, half-erased memories Bruno couldn't voice. Who had trained him? What happened the day he disappeared? How had he survived for 2 years without anyone finding him? Even now, flashes of instinct emerged from time to time. A certain sound would make Bruno pause. A scent on the wind would make him stand a little taller. His past wasn't done with him yet. Not entirely. And maybe, Lily thought, it never would. But that was okay, because Bruno had a future now. One filled with second chances, morning walks, and bedtime stories. He didn't need to prove anything. He had already done enough. And still, there were moments, quiet ones, where Lily caught him staring toward the woods, watching, remembering, as if some part of him was waiting for something or someone. It was during one of those moments that a letter arrived in the mail. Bore the seal of the U.S. Army. Inside, a short note. They had read the article. They had confirmed Bruno's identity. They wanted to send someone, to visit, to talk, maybe even to recover fragments of his service record. Lily read the letter twice. She looked at Bruno. "Do you remember them?" she asked. Bruno blinked slowly, then stood, walked to her side, and sat tall. He didn't wag his tail. He didn't flinch. He was ready, whatever that meant. And just like that, a new chapter began. Not with fireworks or fanfare, but with a girl, a dog, and the quiet understanding that stories don't end just because they've been told. Some stories, they grow. Some heroes, they return. And some friendships, they never stop unfolding. Stay with us. In our next episode, we follow Bruno and Lily as they prepare to meet the soldier who trained him and discover that the past they thought was closed may still have something to say.